Welcome to X1T Gaming, and together we're going to revolutionize the gaming industry. So we're going to finish off the 1.3, what we started with, the second part. So I think we're just going to finish how the camera moves. Um, yeah, so we'll go along. I'm just opening up my Unity platform right now. And yeah, so it's high speed chase. How to make the offset into vector3 variable. So yesterday we did the vector3 and we did the like the 1 5 -10. He did -7 for his. I like the camera position at -10 better on the z-axis. And so this video we're going to change that, so that's going to be a little bit easier. Yeah, and then the next one, we're going to smooth up the camera, and then we're going to edit the play mode tint color. So that's the camera work is pretty much all it is today. I'm excited that we're going to learn to do more coding. It's not just the drag and drop right now. It was cool learning the camera thing where you actually have to offset it. That was something that is starting to make my mind change a little bit for coding, where I'm like, okay, I can't just assume that the computer does that. He everything that they do is absolute, like literal to the T. Okay, so let's get going with the first video. So I think today will be actually a short time. Maybe I should have finished yesterday. Oh well, we'll see how it goes.
Now, our camera is positioned perfectly behind our vehicle as it drives down the scene. What we're going to do is we're just going to clean up our code just a little bit to make it easier to understand. In our follow player script, I mentioned that it's really bad to have hard-coded values. So we're actually going to take this vector3 we've created and create a variable for it. So this one will make a private variable, so it can only be used inside of this class. So I'm just going to use the keyword private here so you can see how it's used. Very similar to a public variable. And for this, because we're making a vector3, we need to make this variable a type of vector3, and we'll call it the offset. Now we set this variable to be this value here. So in fact, we can just cut by Control or Command X with the code highlighted, and then we go to where we had the offset and we paste with Control or Command V. So now our offset vector variable is being set to that new vector that we made before with our offset position already added to it. So now in our update method, we can just add where we removed that bit of code, the word offset, and because offset is a vector3 being added onto a vector3, then we can set our position properly. Make sure you save, go back into Unity, and press play, and you should see that nothing has changed, which is exactly what we wanted to happen. So what you're going to do is in your follow player script, you're going to...
Sweet, so we did this one also yesterday, where we're just doing the private and the public stuff for the player controller. We did that with, what did we do that with? The float speed. Yeah, so every time we just put speed, it's going to be the same, but this one we decided to make it public so that you could actually see it. And oh, did I oh man, I'm sorry. You guys are just sorry about that. Okay, so what did we learn today? So we go to the follow player. What we did was right here, it said the new vector, this thing right here. So what we did was we just made it a private class, vector3 offset. So that's the name. So whenever we use offset, it's going to equal this. So it's kind of like the time we used the what was it on the other one. So it kind of was the same when we used this one right here, the float. So we did the public float, and it did speed was the name. Okay, so float is probably represents a single precision floating point number. Okay, so the float was speed, and that was it. So we did speed over here. And so that's the same thing that we had, but we did a vector 3 because that's what we needed for the camera was a vector 3 of to make it offset. Nice, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. I still don't understand what a float is, but I do understand a little bit what the vector 3 is. So that is pretty cool. And we did a new vector. Sweet. Sweet. That's pretty good. Okay, let's go on to the next video. And now I got the camera on so you can actually see. I'm sorry about that. Give me grace, I'm still learning. So we got two more sections to go through. I'll mark this one as complete. So the reason why he was saying that we want to do these things is what I'm getting at, is it makes it a little bit easier. And so now every time we need something to be offset by that much, we'll just say offset. It kind of thinks that it feels in a way that it's more work, but I can see that it's actually going to be better, because then if I ever need to use it again, I just go offset, 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 offset. Yeah. Okay, let's watch the next video. Smooth the camera with late update.
Okay, now that we have our camera following our vehicle properly, you might notice that there's a weird effect happening with the vehicle itself where it's kind of stuttering back and forth. And so we can make one small change to our follow player script to make our vehicle move super smoothly. Now, essentially what's happening is, in our update method, our vehicle and our camera are both moving at the same time. So sometimes the vehicle might move first and then the camera might move, but other times the camera might move and then the vehicle will move, and so it creates this stuttering effect. A simple thing that we can do with our update method is change it to late update with a capital L, make sure there's no space so it's all one word. And with this late update method, essentially what it will do is update after our update method happens. So if you remember, for our vehicle, it's moving through the update method, constantly moving forward, and then late update is called, which will then move our camera after the vehicle is moved. So if I save this script using Control S or Command S on a Mac, head back over to Unity and then test out our script to see if it works, we'll press play. And you can see now that the vehicle is moving much smoother because of that late update method, where the vehicle moves first and then late update happens, making the camera move to follow the vehicle. So what you're going to do...
Okay, that was pretty straightforward. I feel like today is going to be a very short video for you guys. Then we'll go edit the play mode tint color.
Our camera is now well set up in our game to be behind the player, and we even added in some variables to make our code more organized. Now we're actually going to fiddle around with our Unity interface again, just like we changed the layout, but this time with a very helpful tip to know when you're playing your game. So you can see when you play the game, your interface goes from a light gray to a dark gray, which is helpful, but not entirely visible. So I'm going to show you a cool little trick that I do, so it's really easy for me to know when I'm in play mode. At the very top left of Unity, there's an edit button. If you're on Mac, there will be a Unity button, and then you click Preferences. From my edit menu, I have a Preferences option as well. Now, in our preferences, we have all of these different options. Right now we're on general. There's one down here called colors, and specifically there's an option here called play mode tint. So this is actually what controls the tint of our interface when we're in play mode. So if I select this by clicking on it, you see it brings up a color picker. So you can pick colors yourself, you can move it around, you can change the opacity so that it's more clear, or if you want it to be really dark and really visible, entirely up to you. So I have a setting that I like to use, so I'm just going to type in values for myself. So 157, 194, 239, and then we'll make this like 150. So now I should have a fairly transparent light blue. So I can close out of my preferences. You can see that it actually saves it immediately when you set that color. Close out of the preferences. Now when I press play, you should see a bluish tint pop up over all of my window. So that's super helpful. So now I know when I'm editing values, if I'm in play mode or if I'm in my scene. And so that way I don't accidentally change something that just gets reset and then I don't remember what the value is. So very helpful tip, just something to make your life a little bit easier as you're testing your game out and trying to figure out why, for example, if you click on something, it's not moving or whatever. So what you're going to do is...
Okay, mark step is complete. So that's pretty much it that we did. I don't think we really needed that as a video. I don't know. What do you guys think? Were you guys able to tell the difference between the play mode? I kind of like the old setting personally. What was it? It was 204. I believe it was 204. 204. 255. I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. Because even these ones change too. They kind of go away when they see. So I didn't like the blue one personally. Okay, so that's it for today's. I'm going to mark step as complete. Yay! I got 10 experience. I got Unity Essentials level 1 and I got Programming level 1. 5 experience each. Nice. So let's continue. Skip and continue. Going to lesson 1.4. Step into the driver's seat. Let's go into this a little bit. I feel like this video is way too short to not do that. Okay, so step into the driver's seat. Allow the vehicle to move right and left. So this is pretty interesting because we're going to probably look into our player controller over here, do some more coding to allow us to adjust on the keyboard. So that's interesting. Get to learn some stuff there. What does it say? Yeah, I'm trying. They give you the code to begin with, so I'll show you. I still have you guys on camera, right? Yes. Okay, so as you guys can see, they kind of share this image, which is pretty nice. So we could see what we're going to be doing. Transform, translate, vector 3 forward, vector 3 right, time slash delta, turn speed. So public for turn speed. So we're going to learn, yeah. Okay, so let's just read the video and learn it. I don't understand it when I read it. I vaguely understand it. So the transform, translate, I still don't understand what transform, translate means. But I'm assuming that transform is that you're making something move, or basically you're transforming it to do something that it's not really what it's originally doing. And to translate, I don't know. Let's watch. We'll figure it out one day. If I am all wrong, please by all means let me know. I am learning. I am by no means an expert at this.
Our vehicle drives down
Yeah.
the scene now, and when we press play, we have this nice tint to show us that we're in play mode, and we have our camera following, but right now, we still can't control our vehicle. It just drives all the way down the road, just running all these obstacles over, pushing them off, and then eventually it gets to the end of the road, and then it just falls straight off. That's just because there's not an end there. But we need to be able to control this vehicle's movement. So first, we need to be able to move our vehicle so that it avoids the obstacles. If we open our player controller script, we're going to need a way to control our vehicle to move left or right. So we should probably just use a variable to do that, since we know it's probably pretty bad to just use a random number. So good to think ahead in general. We're going to make this a public variable so that we can control it just like we did with the speed. It will also be a float because we'll be using decimal points. And then we're just going to call it turn, lowercase t, capital S for speed. So you can see here turn speed has different capitalization. So this is a very standard, what is called a naming convention when you're programming. So for variables, we often use lowercase letters like speed, turn speed, even transform is a variable to be able to very easily see when we're using a class or when we're using an object, when we're using methods, or when we're just using variables. Now we want to be able to move our vehicle left or right, so we'll do something similar to what we did with our transform.translate. Instead of a vector 3 forward, we can actually use, there's a whole bunch of other options for vector 3, so we can actually use like right. So this will move our vehicle in the right direction. Again, we're going to multiply by time.delta time because we want to be able to update this position over time instead of once every frame, and then we multiply by that handy turn speed variable that we made before. So now in our game, if we take a look down at our game view and we select our vehicle so we can see the values, if we press play, nothing's happening. Well, that's actually because we're multiplying by a 0. So actually, if we click on turn speed and drag it to the right, it'll actually start turning right if it's positive. If we go to the left, it'll start going to the left because the value's negative. So easy way to see how we can move our vehicle left or right. Now that's great, but we'll need to be able to also control it as well. But first, what you're going to do in your player controller script, create your own turn speed variable. We'll make it public so we can play around with it in the editor. Make it a float because it will be a decimal value. And then in your update method, we're going to add another transform. This time we're translating.
Okay, so we got that. It's funny. I forgot to put the period there, or not the period, the semicolon. So it couldn't read the code. So this is important. So yeah, so this is what basically this is the exact same thing as this. There's no different. We just changed it to turn speed instead of speed, but he didn't put it like an actual variable to start off with, so it just starts off at 0. And then because we made it public, we got turn speed at the bottom here. Here, let me turn the camera off so you can see. So you got the variable here, you got the turn speed. So if we put turn speed at, let's say, 5, it should turn to the right at 5. And then if we do -5, it will go left. So now the next video, I'm assuming that the next video is going to actually get that code and put it with the arrow keys for our thing. So that's interesting. So what I'm learning is that it's probably best to get it to move first, get it to do what you want by itself first, and then figure out how to make it work with your mouse or your keys, whatever you want to do. Interesting. Okay, base left right movement on input.
our player can now drive down the road and we can change the speed of its movement. We can even change the speed of its turn. However, if our player is actually playing the game, we don't want to be able to fly off the road, for one, but also, if our player is using like a joystick or something, we can't just be dragging this variable around. We can't do this for a single player, like it's magic behind the scenes. So we're going to create some actual magic so that the player can actually control their own movement. A very helpful thing to know before we get into programming this is understanding that Unity does a lot of things that make our lives a lot easier. So, in fact, if you go to the top left under Edit, or if you're on Mac under Unity, if you go down to Project Settings and you click on that, there's all these options for project settings, but what we really care about is actually our input. So this is actually our input manager in Unity, and they've helpfully already created a way where when you do something, it's already mapped to be able to change that value. So if you left click on the drop down on axes, you can see there's different ones, like there's actually fire button, so you can actually press like the left control button to fire something, or a second option, left alt, left shift. There's a jump, which is the space bar. You can take a look at all of these different options, but what we're looking for specifically are actually these horizontal and vertical axes. And so this is actually how Unity knows if we want it to go left or if we want it to go right. Using these horizontal axes, we can actually see those values change and how they change. You can see that there's inputs for the left arrow key to go negative or the right arrow key to go positive. There's also alternative buttons for using the A key to go negative or the D key to go positive, and it's called the horizontal axis. Knowing this, we can do something really easy to be able to control the player's movement. In our player controller class, first we're going to create a public variable so we can actually watch and see what it's doing. And this will be a float again, and we'll call this horizontal input because this is actually the input that we'll be tracking on our horizontal axis, left or right. And then what we need to do is we actually need to set this variable, which we'll do inside of our code. So we'll actually do this in our update method. So we use our horizontal input, we call our variable, and then we use the equal sign. So we're going to assign this variable some value. And now if you remember that input manager, so there's actually a class and a method that we can call just for that input manager. So if we type capital INPUT. So this is our input manager. It's called input. So now that we have our input manager class, if we type dot, and then we were looking for that axis before, so we can actually use our getAxis method. So this will give us the values for when we press the left or right key on that axis, but we also need to tell it which axis we want to use. And in this case, it's asking for the name of our axis, specifically a string. Now, a string is a way for your computer or program to create a word that is literally interpreted by the computer and easily understandable for us. So, for example, if I in here actually type in a double quote, you can see it actually auto-completes a double quote for me at the end. So this is creating a string literal inside of these quotes. So it'll literally interpret anything that I put in. I could literally say hello world, which is very helpful if I'm trying to, for example, print something, or I need the program to tell me an error that's happening or something like that. Using string literals can be helpful in that sense. For this, we actually type in the word horizontal because in Unity, in our input manager, the name of our horizontal axis is just horizontal. So now we're getting the input for whenever a player presses the left or right key. And then last but not least, we need to actually go into our translate and multiply this by our horizontal input. So now if you make sure you save, we can close out of our project settings. And let's make sure we select that vehicle so we can actually see what's happening on the horizontal input. Our turn speed is set to 0, so we know that's not going to work. So we'll set it to 1 for now. And then if we press play, so we should see if we press the left arrow key, it slowly moves to the left. If we press the right key, it slowly moves to the right. And we can use the A key too if we want to use the other key. It'll move to the left. If we use our D key, it will slowly move to the right. So we know our input manager is working. You can even see the values change from -1 to +1. So that's a very handy way of understanding how your input manager works. As you press the left arrow key or the A key, horizontal input goes negative all the way to -1. Or if you press the D or the right arrow key, it goes to +1. So what you're going to do is you're going to add another public float variable called horizontal input. In your update method, you're going to call the horizontal input variable. You're going to set it to the input for our input manager, and you're going to get the axis that's horizontal so we can get those left and right arrow keys. And then last but not least, in your transform.translate, you're going to multiply the entire equation by our horizontal input. Now it's your turn.
Okay, so we did it. Okay, so that's the nice thing about Unity. So you do make it easier. I would like to one day learn actually how to do that without doing Unity. One sec. What is that? Project folder this. Okay. Okay, so yeah. Let's go back. What I'm learning. So turn speed times horizontal input. Horizontal input's a float. We made it public. And then we made it horizontal input equals input.get axis, and it's horizontal, which that part was part of a Unity that they already had. So what I'm assuming is you probably have to put like horizontal, but you'll have to make this horizontal yourself inside this code, or actually make another C# thing and just say left and right and do some code for that, and then have it this one to be access to that one. But yeah, you need the left and right, so that's good that they got that. Okay. Do we have time for one more? Should we do one more? Let's do one more. So I think we're going to be doing the same thing. But you know what? I want to try something. I want to try to do this without the actual video to see if I can beat the system. See if I got this. So if we go back to edit, and it was project settings. So now the one is vertical. So that's the up down kind of thing. So we're probably could do the exact same thing, but we will use vertical instead. So how I would write that code is that we put another one. We'll do public float vertical input. Make sure we do that. And then we need this one to do vertical input equals input dot equals input dot get axis. And we're going to do this one again and call it vertical. And then we need this. I'm going to save. Load the script. Look at the red car. We got the vertical. Let's try it. Let's just try it. So we press play. It's going forward. But can I slow it down? Oh, that's what I did. Player controller. We need speed times vertical input. Save. Oh my goodness, did I just do it? Did I just do it? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I'm a programmer. Look at this. I didn't even need to watch the video. I'm learning. Oh my goodness. You see, gaming industry, you gotta be careful. So I don't like the turning speed. It's a little bit slow for my liking. So if I go, oh, let's change this one. Back. Let's change the speed to 10. Oh man. There we go. I like that speed. Maybe need to drive a little bit faster though. What? This is crazy. This is absolutely insane. And look how it goes like that. So we'll probably have to write a code to make it turn. Oh man, I am so excited. I just did the next one without even looking at it. And now that I'm looking at it, they're just boom. I don't even need to watch this guy's video for this one. Yeah, I learned something. I learned something. So just so you guys know, so this is the code. I didn't look at it, I swear. I wanted to figure this out myself. There's no point. Look, there's no point in me cheating in this aspect. Because the whole thing is I'm trying to learn. So what's the point of cheating? Right? So basically he's just saying right here, he's doing the same thing that I just did. Wow. I didn't even look at that. I just got it. I'm so proud of myself. I don't really understand either. Public float, I'm starting to kind of understand. I understand public and private. I understand that. The float, I still don't really understand, but I feel like it's this word that's used for something, right? You're just using this word. But then here, you're updating. It's telling you what that word is for. So now you have the float. You're like this. When I put this, this is what I mean. Okay. And so now when you do times, it's not like actual times table. It's like you need all those variables in order for it to work. So to go forward, you need all those things. Man, I'm so happy. I'm just going to mark it complete without even watching it. Because I just written this without watching it. I don't need to. Man, I am so excited. We got the rotator. Okay, so we got the rotator next. And what other video? Clean your code and hierarchy. Okay. Lesson recap. You know what? Let's just finish this. Let's just finish this. It's just 2 more videos. We can do this. We can do this. Oh man, I am so excited. That was phenomenal. I am. Well, clearly you guys aren't excited as me, but see, the reason why I'm excited is because I figured something out myself. I know it's like super simple and a monkey could probably do it. It's like, duh, it's obvious, but the fact that I did it by myself is what I'm happy about. And now we're learning how to rotate. Nice.
We have full control over our vehicle now. It's not just driving off down the road. But now we have some weird stuff happening. So when we press the left arrow key, we slide to the left. And if we press the right arrow key, we slide to the right. To visualize again what we're trying to do, I'm going to go into my top-down view by clicking the green Y arrow in my scene view. And now I'm very high up in the sky. If I select my vehicle in my hierarchy and I press F while my mouse is hovering over the scene, we focus back into the vehicle. Now I'm actually going to select my rotate tool. So let's see what's changing actually when we click on this circle here. If we drag it to the left, you can see in the inspector underneath transform, the Y rotation is actually the thing that's moving. So that's probably what we'll want to change in our code. In our player controller class, we already have this bit of code here where we're moving left or right. Let's see, well, if we are using our vehicle's transform, then we'll need that transform component. Now let's see, luckily, because my IDE suggests different methods that I can use. Well, there's this one method called rotate, so it'll actually rotate it at an angle. Well, let's just see what it does. So if I click on the rotate method, and then I type an open parentheses, it suggests different things. So it wants a vector 3, Eulers, an axis, and a float angle. That one seems pretty useful. Well, we know that the axis is that y-axis, that vector 3 up. So actually, vector 3 dot up. And then it wants the angle. Well, we kind of already calculate an angle here because of our turn speed. Let's just see what it does. So if we select our time all the way down to our input and our vector 3 dot right translate, if we cut that out with Control or Command X, in our rotate method, after the comma, make sure to paste that entire line of code in there. We're going to put the semicolon to close that statement, and then we just delete our translate there for vector 3 right. Now if we save, we'll see if that works, if that was what we're looking for. Now when I press play, if we watch the vehicle in our game, as I drive forward, I'm turning left and I'm turning right ever so slowly, but I'm turning, so that looks pretty good. So what we'll actually do is, if we select our vehicle in the hierarchy, we'll turn the turn speed up to like 25. We'll see what happens. We're just testing anyways. Now we'll play again. There you go. Now it looks like our car is really driving down the road. That's awesome. Look at it go. Just driving all around, avoiding all those obstacles. One very cool thing to note. So, in fact, if I actually go in my scene view, and I'm going to keep play on here just so we can kind of see what's happening. So you can see in our game, as I move forward, it always knows what direction it's moving forward. Now, we've been moving all of our objects in our scene, if we select our move tool, based on the global position of things. So we're always doing it based on 0, 0. Our Z arrow will always go positive in the Z. Same thing with our X arrow and our Y arrow. But at the top left, next to all of our tools, you'll notice this button here that says global. In fact, if we actually click on global, we can set this to local. Now, let me get a better angle so you can kind of see what's happening. So as I turn the vehicle, make sure you have the game selected. As I turn the vehicle, you can see that the Z is changing, and it's always pointing in that forward direction. But then, if I switch this toggle back to global, you can see that the Z flips back to the positive Z direction of our world. So, when you're trying to position things in your world, it's helpful to have that toggle set to global. But then when you're testing things, like if you want to make sure that your object is facing the right direction, you can toggle it to local, and then you can see which way your object is pointing while you're trying to interact with it. So that's very handy. Very helpful tip in case you ever need it. So what you're going to do is in your player controller script, down where you were transform.translating by vector3 right, you're going to create a new line of code underneath it, and we're actually going to use our rotate method on our transform component. We need the axis that we're going to rotate it around, which in this case is our up axis. And then,
Okay, so that was it. I'm not super happy with the rotate tool, but it's fine. Can't yeah, you can't be complainers. So we just did transform instead of translate right. We just did up, rotate up. Okay, so honestly, we didn't really have to do the spread. Oh, well, I guess you want to write because then you learn. So we mark as complete. Yeah, I would have liked it if it didn't rotate. This is just me being picky, but if you see it just rotates like that, it doesn't rotate like how an actual car will move. But then again, beggars can't be choosers. So I'll figure out in the future how to get my OCD in check. Okay, clean your code hierarchy.
now our game looks really good. Our player has full control. We got rid of that weird turning issue we had. So now we can actually just turn instead of sliding around the road. So what we're going to do, last but not least, is we're going to clean up our entire project so that it's nice and organized. Luckily, we've done that already in our project window with all of our folders. We have our scripts, and we have our assets in our library. We have our scenes, so we don't have to worry about any of those. There is one bit of cleanup here in our hierarchy. We have all of these obstacles, and that's kind of disorganized. It also will clutter up your hierarchy very quickly. So we can actually take a tip out of our environment here. So you can see actually there's 3 other objects under our environment for our road, our sky dome, and our mountains. So what we're going to do, we'll collapse our environment. If we right-click on the hierarchy window, we can scroll down to create empty. So this will actually create an empty game object in our scene that we can't see. It doesn't exist. If I click off of it, there's nothing actually there. If I click back on the game object, there you can see it. So we'll actually rename this obstacles, and I'm just going to select the name in the inspector. Rename it obstacles, press enter. So we can use empty game objects to just keep track of all of the different groups of objects in our scene. In this case, I'm going to select our first obstacle, shift click to the last obstacle, left click drag all of those into that empty game object. So now all of those game objects are nested underneath that empty object. Later, we'll be able to really use nested game objects to their full power, but at the very least, we can use nesting of game objects. So our parent empty game object can just group together all of our children game objects so that our hierarchy is nice and organized. So if I collapse this, now it looks a lot cleaner, but if I ever want to go see all of my obstacles, I can click on the arrow next to it, expand, and see all the different obstacles that are there. So that's super helpful. Now, we're going to clean up a lot of the code in our player controller script. First, we don't need these public variables anymore. We already know the values that we want to use, so we'll make them private. That way, whatever we change inside of the inspector doesn't have a different value inside of our script here. One thing we do need to do, we never actually set turn speed, so we'll need to initialize that. So I believe we had something like 25 or so. We can always change it later if we need to. We can even add some comments, so private variables, so we know that this is where all of our private variables are. In our update method, we can also add some comments. So we can add, this is where we get player input. We can change this comment because we did make the vehicle move forward. And we can add another comment underneath. We turn the vehicle. And then we save. So that way now our code is a lot more readable, very organized. We know exactly what we were trying to do. And then if we want, we can do the same thing for our variables in our follow player class. In this case, we're going to keep our game object public because we actually gave this variable a reference in our script in Unity. So if we actually turn this to private, we won't have that reference anymore and we'd actually break our camera. So what you're going to do is in your hierarchy, if you right click inside of it, you can create an empty.
Okay, let me just go back a little bit. He's going a little too quick.
That way now our code.
Okay, so that's what he wanted. Was he wanted this one and just go private variables. Private variables. Okay, so we save this. Shouldn't do anything different. Yeah, so now when I click the red car, we don't have all those things. So you can see. Here, let me get off. Boom. You see all those things are gone. So everything is just normal. Back to the settings. And it still works. And so we'll just change everything inside the player editor, the code. Okay, I gotcha. Okay, mark as complete. So it's just easier to read, especially if you're going to be working with other people and people want to have the code. It's very important to do that. Okay, so I'm going to mark this one as complete. We don't need a recap. We just went through all that. Yay! 10 experience points for programming level 1. Continue. Oh, nice. Now we got challenge 1. Ooh. We'll work on that later. Oh, sick. Okay, that's good. That is good. Okay, I'm gonna have to show you guys this one. So part of go learn.unity.com, do your thing. So this is a challenge 1. We're going to have an overview video. So this is the video challenge. They're going to teach us to get all this project started. What's this warning? It is supposed to have bugs. Okay, the purpose of the challenge is to fix those bugs. Nice. Oh my goodness, this is pretty much the core of being a programmer is what I hear, is that you just go around fixing bugs. So we get that. The plane is going backward. Make the plane go forward. Nice. The plane is going too fast. Slow down the plane down to a manageable speed. The plane is tilting automatically. Make the plane tilt only if the user presses up or down arrows. The camera is in the front of the plane. Reposition it so that's beside the plane. The camera is not following the plane. Make the camera follow the plane. Bonus: the plane's propeller does not spin. Oh snap! So they didn't teach us that one. So I'm gonna have to use my knowledge to be able to get all that stuff. You see, they have like 157 comments. People are trying to figure this one out. Okay, I am excited for this one actually. Tutorial challenge 1. Yeah, I'm actually really excited for that. And then we have a tutorial lab afterwards, and then a quiz. And then we're going to go to Unit 2, basic gameplay. Nice. Nice. Yeah, no, they say this is a 2-week course. Probably if you're doing it more often. But because I am working, I can only do it part-time. And yes. Oh man, that feels so good. Today, I feel like is a win day. We were able to do one thing by ourselves to figure it out, make it work. Then we looked at the settings and that they said that's what it is. So yeah, no, tomorrow while it's fresh in my mind, all this stuff, we're gonna try to do our best. I might cheat a little bit. I don't want to cheat and come back and look at the actual scripts and stuff. But yes, let's don't forget to save. Save as. Okay, so yes, I do Twitch gaming in the morning before work, if I have work, and then I do YouTube late at night at 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I got kids. I put them down to bed. Once they're all into bed, I come out, do this. So, yes, this is exciting. So I'm really excited for tomorrow. We're finally doing like actual code, or I feel like we're actually doing code. I like how the Unity is set up. They have a lot of stuff interface that's very easily to use. Try to make everything organized. Yeah, making sure everyone's on the same page. No, I am really excited about this. I'm really excited. I am learning. We got this. Okay, so I'll be on tomorrow if you want to join me for some fun games on Twitch tomorrow morning. Don't have any work at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then I'll be back again on YouTube doing coding stuff. So if you're learning how to code along with me, follow me and we will enjoy it. Okay, thanks, and I'll see you tomorrow.